Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the S3E10, and today I'm going to cover the up-and-coming Eternal Derby that's going to take place on this Sunday, February 22nd, on the Committed Stadium. It's Red Star against Partizan Belgrade, one of the most anticipated derbies in football history. As I mentioned in my previous video about Predrag Mijatovic, I think it's second place. The first place is, of course, River Plata versus Boca Juniors, or Boca Juniors versus River Plata, however you please. And on Sunday, February 22nd, I feel like as I'm selling like a WrestleMania place for this internal derby. On February 22nd, Red Star is trying to take first place at this Vučko League, and this intention that has been going for a very, very long time. It's now the case where I'm going to say this at the beginning of my new video. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the S3E10 Blade Runner 2147. And, sorry. Now, the thing is that in this Eternal Derby, I'm going to say like a very, excuse me, controversial opinion of this case of nature, that even if Partizan Belgrade beats the other club on Sunday, February 22nd, it won't make much of a difference, in a sense that not a lot of clubs will give resistance to the other club which plays against Partizan Belgrade on Sunday. The fundamental difference is to give you introduction that these clubs that I'm currently talking about in this video, as I mentioned in my other videos about Partizan Belgrade and the other club, they were formed in 1945, the Communist Twins. The other club was formed in March of 1945, whereas Partizan Belgrade was founded on 4th of October 1945 by the army, JNA, Yugoslavian People's Army in 1945, which basically like ideology, the clashes of two ideologies, as the thumbnail says in this video, between the army and the police. Now, the army is Partizan Belgrade and the police is the other club. The police is honor versus army honor. And as everybody knows, in Sorabendia and Europe and America and other continents, as I'm making this video, is that women and girls themselves, they kind of prefer to have army men in their home instead of the pig donut guy that's protecting the law. Sorry, I mean protecting the government and fuck the people. That's the truth. Now, in this derby on February 22nd, there has been a lot of history, and the last time Partizan Belgrade has defeated the other club was in late December of 2023, when Igor Duljaj was the coach of Partizan Belgrade. Partizan defeated them 2-1, and it was like a very much celebrated victory. And I do hope that after 2 years, 2 years and 2 months, I think that is, 2 years and 2 months, Partizan can make the same, even 1-0 under the coach Flea. That's the nickname Gravediggers gave to the coach. I'm not going to even mention his name, Mr. Flea. He might defeat Dejan Stankovic on Sunday, but I cannot say that for certainty or any guarantee, because Partizan Belgrade's tempo or the entire structure presented, because it's unknown on Sunday, because on Sunday, February 22nd, maybe Mr. Flea doesn't bring the A+ game on Sunday, and maybe something XY happens. But I do hope, as I mentioned just a couple of moments ago, after our foundation in 1945, there has been this ideological clash struggle, not because of the upper class, middle class. It's like the sports class of themselves, when they're trying to present each ideology to the detriment of the other. So when it comes to the Eternal Derbies in Serbia, so give me one second. I just have to Google it, because I don't know it by heart how many times everybody. Sorry, give me a second. Eternal Derby Sorabendia, to give you the presentation of how many times each defeated each in this context. So currently, Red Star leads currently 71-48 and 58 draws. So this is going to be 178th derby, and I do hope Partizan wins, because at Red Star Stadium, the other club stadium, Partizan has only defeated them 16 times, whereas the other club has triumphed 45 times at their own stadium. So at the Juna stadium of Partizan Belgrade, Partizan has beaten them 32 times, whereas the other club has beaten them 26 times. So it's like a very more favored when they are at their own stadium, so they have more chances to beat us, and we have done it rarely so, and 30 draws at their stadium and 28 at Juna stadium. So the point is that in this case of context, the Eternal Derby has always caused a lot of attention and has been considered the holy grail of football in Sorabendia. So on February 22nd, a lot of people will be watching this Eternal Derby, with a lot of people saying that Derby doesn't make any fundamental difference because it's a different type of football and strategic and whatnot, and it can go in so many ways and in so many choices and as well not. And the point is that Partizan has a very small window chance of beating the other club on Sunday, but the thing is, these statistics I just presented to you, when it comes to the derby themselves, it doesn't have that much of a difference, in a sense that it can happen that Partizan can beat them 1-0, for example. It can happen that Red Star can make like 7-0 because the other club, in this case, a context. So the thing is that in these derbies, until the arrival of Alhamdulillah, Partizan has beaten the other club a lot of times, and it's, as I mentioned, these statistics of 48 times, but this 48 was much of a difference when it comes to beating them, because under the regime of Boris Glavic, so there was only like a one defeat they suffered in 2007, I think in late February, like 10 days from now, it's going to be like 19 years, where they lost 4-2 at their own stadium. And after a while, like 10 years later, under the leadership of Alhamdulillah, Partizan has beaten them 3-1. And I have to say that in that difference, their fans love to say that we were heavily favorites in Boris Glavic era. But to tell you the truth, if the club in 2010 was struggling with paying electricity bills and having no sponsors when we played against Anderlecht and we beaten them on penalties, I cannot really say or come forward to say that in this context that I know Partizan can win, because there had been cases where in this football derby history in which Partizan has beaten the other club when they were very strong and they were very much more quality, but that was rare. It can happen, but not that so much. But I do hope for a miracle that on Sunday people, they spite themselves and to realize and figure out that that it is possible that they can actually beat the other club, even though the chances and the system and everything is stacked heavily against them. And I do hope and believe Partizan can beat them, but the chances are 95-5. I'm giving like even 10% to Partizan just because of my somewhat crazy optimism, that 10% to Partizan, 90 to the other club, and it can happen on February 22nd. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my video, even if Partizan beats the other club on Sunday, it's not a guarantee they're going to win the title, because what Partizan Belgrade has done in the past and its own retarded history of shooting themselves in the leg or in the head or in the arm, in the palm, whatever, the part of anatomy of one's body, is that they can draw with some random club, they can lose to a random club, they can really damage themselves much more than they can beat the other club. As I mentioned, even if they beat the other club, the chances are very big that they can screw themselves when it comes to winning the championship, because Partizan is a major talent which it has a lot of similarities, not a lot, apologies, I'll rephrase myself, small and some similarities to Chelsea. What do I mean by that? That Chelsea in its history has been a charity case to some relegation clubs and gave them a draw or a defeat, or somebody took 3 points from Chelsea. Much very like Partizan Belgrade, in which Partizan gives a draw to a charity case or to some club that only has been existing to sabotage or detriment Partizan into winning the championship. So clubs like Vojvodina or Čukarički or Javor or Napredak has been existing only to sabotage Partizan Belgrade and only to try to beat them if possible. When it comes to the other club of this eternal derby equation, they don't really bother that much to beat them, you know. It's just maybe, as I mentioned, Vojvodina, it took them 13, I think 12 to 13 years to fucking beat Red Star 2 times in the championship, which is unheard of because that hasn't been done before, not even in Cancer-Slavia, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe even if, I don't think Vojvodina have beaten Red Star twice, even when they won the championship in 1988. 1989, 88, whatever the fuck. Yeah, 1980 was Vojvodina, 1989 was Vardar, and and stuff like that. The point is that in this internal derby, there is a lot of at stake, and we're going to see that if Flea, the coach of Partizan Belgrade, has cojones to play a game against the other club, or the Alhamdulillah is going to send him the list of players that he wants to play with in first or second half, and we're going to see that in this context, if the Flea is going to keep his end of the bargain and try to play against play against Partizan Belgrade. My unconscious part took over for a second. Play against the other club, and in this context, I do hope for the victory. But the thing is that Alhamdulillah is very sensitive to defeats from Partizan Belgrade. So as I mentioned, the last time Partizan has beaten the other club was on late December of 2023 under Igor Dulej, and ever since that we either suffered a loss, a draw, a defeat, 3-3 or whatever the fuck. The point is that Partizan's defense has been very questionable for a lot of months and even years before, and the defense can be like a Swiss cheese and to be very susceptible to conceding goals, which Partizan is very talented for, and especially goals, the most random goals one can ever think of, and goals being given by a random player nobody will ever even remember except giving goal to Partizan Belgrade. That's the curse. That's the curse of this club. Now, speaking of curses, Partizan Belgrade, as I mentioned, can shoot themselves in the head or in the leg when it comes to winning the championships. Now, I don't know if that's a psychological fear of actually winning the treble or winning the championship, upsetting the establishment and the alhamdulillah of the state, because in this state it's already predetermined. It's like they're following the postulates of Calvinism, of predeterminism, in which everybody knows who is going to win in advance when it comes. Now, is that a definition of corruption and greed and whatnot? Yes, it is. But to my European fans watching this video currently as you're in gym or at home or at restaurant, any bar joints or food joints, you have to understand that it is a crime, it is a corruption, but the law is kind of turned off. It's like, imagine if the other club that Partizan is playing against and the Alhamdulillah has typed in Ayazakmi for his own club, his own people. But when I say his own people, I mean his ruling party, the members of the ruling party, and himself, in which he is completely immune, and he is immune to the law. As I mentioned, he turned Ayazakmi when he came to power and has been playing with Ayazakmi ever since. Now, whether that's fair or not, I leave that to the other people to discuss and philosophize about. But when it comes to Partizan Belgrade, one thing that has been missing in their gameplay is spite and passion and determination. So they're lacking like a German discipline in which they can actually piss off themselves, be pissed off by themselves, and actually try to beat the other club, because they know, the kids themselves that are currently playing for Partizan Belgrade, they know themselves what they watched as kids, and they're now as adults feeling the same exact thing they watched on television, and they know themselves that they have to bring their A game on Sunday, February 22nd, and realize that when you're playing against the government, Alhamdulillah, and the other club, you have to bring your A game, and you have to follow that Spartan rule that says either with the shield or on the shield. There is no other way when it comes to the sports history of Partizan Belgrade. As I mentioned, that was founded in 4th of October 1945 as the JNA Army. You can check for yourself. But in this case, the context, I do really hope that the Flea can bring the A game to the Eternal Derby on Sunday, because even if we beat them, there is still no guarantee. Of course, we're going to be very happy, ecstatic, euphoric, and of course, we're going to joke with them. And of course, here is the catch 22 with Calimero people doing. Let's say Partizan beats the other club on Sunday. On Sunday, after 7 or 8 p.m., the fans of the other club are going to say that they let us beat them. And that has been the same constant pattern in eternal derbies. Every time Partizan has beaten them when they were at the height of their power, when they were very strong, they love to say for themselves, gee, it was a good derby, we'll let you beat us so there will be a peace in the house. That has been like a diplomatic bullshit reply that has been existing for a decade in Sorabendia. So in Sorabendia, for the peace in the house, I guess Alhamdulillah will have to give us a victory, and then he has to risk in him losing the championship in Sorabendia, because I mentioned in my previous video, in the previous videos, when it comes to about Partizan Belgrade, he's heavily, I repeat again, heavily obsessed with my club and how we breathe, how we inhale oxygen, how we support our club, and that he pays us and gives us money because we're in a lot of debts and because of Ustaša Hog Vazura cocksucker. A lot of, rabbit holes and convoluted explanations. I don't know, convoluted became like a favorite word of mine. The point is that on Sunday, he has to produce like Alice in Wonderland, some sort of a spite heroic victory on February 22nd, because if he shows fear against the other club, the fans are going to be heavily pissed and he might get fired, sacked, as Brits love to say, on Sunday, because on Sunday, February 22nd, Partizan versus the other club, there is no other way but forward. Even if the debt and the chances and everything is stacked against you, the media is against you, the government is against you, the narrative is against you, the president is against you, the prime minister is against you, everybody, even in the club, they are against you. We have a lot of sabotages and we have a lot of poturicas in Partizan Belgrade that has been existing in this 80-year-old history, and I do hope that kids themselves, they have to understand this. Everybody's against you. Use that as your fuel to get to victory. Because if you don't believe in victory, they already won in advance in the first place, my gravedigger raccoons. Because you have to understand that on February 22nd, at this WrestleMania sort of like football match that we're going to see, you have to understand that victory is only that matters, because the world remembers only victors and never the losers. It's not going to become like a trivia question. It's going to be who scored for Partizan Belgrade in victory over the other club, the Alhamdulillah club, the most favorized club in history, right next to Barcelona and Real Scumfuck Madrid. They're like the third place, and they're very, very close how they'll deal their shady businesses and how they try to take everything and say everything and control everything. But you have to understand, you have to upset the order, establish the new system, or if not, that on Sunday we will become a nobody. We're going to become like a laughing stock, because Partizan Belgrade has been a laughing stock for so many years. But you have to see, Partizan has to find that inner something, like inner Gavrilo Princip, inner Karađorđe, inner Miloš Obilić, inner Marko Kraljević, inner people, the kids from Košare, anything to find that giant size of your heart and to fight until the last breath, until the referees other club favored, because the referees always love to support the Alhamdulillah club. Now imagine this like a baby face versus heel, but we're not even heels, we're more like a tweeners. Consider like a heel versus a tweener, but in this twisted perspective, the other club is babyface and we are heels. And now who is going to support whom on February 22nd is left to be seen. I do hope that in this context, Partizan wins and tries to catch the top of the sun, of the mountain, because victory comes at hand. The defeat is only the source of the upcoming struggle on February 22nd. Mr. Flea, I know you're going to leave. You're going to get fucked in the ass by either Predrag Mijatovic or somebody higher up. But here is my plea to you. Please give your all, 150%, and say fuck it on Sunday, February 22nd, and tell them that defeat is not an option. Only victory remains. And you have to remember that in victory, they can't do shit to you. I do hope in victory for Partizan Belgrade. If you die by the other club, we will resurrect and we will fight again until we win, until we prevail, until we show you that even in death, what we can do is only to smile back. 22. februar 2026. Partizan protiv drugog kluba. Partizan je bunt. Partizan je plamen. Partizan je žar. Partizan je srednji prst. Partizan je antisistem. Partizan je antiherojstvo. Partizan je Republika Srpska. Partizan je inot. Let us win and let us go, you and I. Partizan šampion! Vučiću, pederu!